So this is the last video I'm going to make on this transmission. Today I just went ahead and assembled it after replacing all of the seals. So this is the rear band piston. You can see chip marks on the side here where this external seal has been replaced in the past. Further evidence of the complete rebuild this transmission's had at some stage. Now you don't actually have to disassemble a piston to that extreme. I just wanted to have a look in there, but you really don't need to go that far. The new seal is reasonably flexible, though it takes quite a bit of strength to actually get it to go over the outer edge of the piston. But once you get it over there, it clicks into place perfectly. So that's that piston completely assembled now. Naturally it's all clean, and I did change the Teflon ring inside it as well. I then moved on to the auxiliary transmission pump. This is not fitted to later versions of this transmission. This is an earlier version, I guess, so it still has it. There's just a few seals inside. I then decided to remove the valve body. Now, it's quite evident that it's had a full service in the past. All of these screws have been touched. They don't come from the factory looking like that. And I had a quick look at it, and yes, it has been fully serviced, so I'm not going to be touching this valve body at all, other than removing it and reinstalling it with a new gasket. And you can even see the screws inside have been touched, so it's been fully disassembled previously. There's absolutely no need for me to touch it, and it's still clean anyway. The rear support, I'm not sure what that's called, that has two Teflon rings on it, and also an O-ring in the transmission housing, so I changed that as well. I just used this socket, 27mm, and a hammer, and tapped that out after undoing the bolts. And I don't know if you noticed, but there is an O-ring where it went, and that seal has to be changed as well for the rear band piston. So those are the new Teflon seals on there, and that's now reinstalled. This hydraulic element for that rear band just comes out the side, or comes out from the inside anyway. It's visible underneath the neutral safety switch on the outside, so it hides under that. And there is an O-ring that stops fluid leaking to the outside world. I started reassembling the transmission after I had done basically the majority of the seals. It's really not that hard to work on. I then did the rear cover. So the mechanical speedo version, that shaft actually comes out. There's just one small snap ring on the plastic shaft, and the gear comes out as well, and there is a seal inside there. And this has obviously not been changed by whoever rebuilt it last time, because the rubber was basically like plastic and shattered. So that was not sealing anymore. Couldn't really demonstrate it because it still looked rubbery in this, but yeah, it did actually shatter. That's bits of rubber and the spring. And again, a socket was the perfect tool here. I believe that was 11mm on a 1/4 inch socket set. Absolute perfect fit, just tap the seal into its home position. And of course that rear seal is new as well. The next thing was to change that selector shaft seal. That's not difficult either. Once that shaft is removed, you can basically just twist it out with a screwdriver. And that's the new one installed. I did consider taking out that overload switch, but I don't have a socket big enough, so I know there's O-rings in there I have not changed, but I can't get it out. I don't have a socket. I did change the O-ring for the vacuum box. Obviously that's all been cleaned before it was put back together. It was time to start installing the rest of the rotating assembly. That's the parking lock. Just testing that that's working. And of course it's working perfectly. This is not step-by-step instructions, there are many steps missing here. Obviously I did install that oiler tube for the plastic gear, you just didn't see it. There are no parts left over. So that's the front piston with those very strong springs. Got to be careful with those. So that's got its new white seal, and there's also an O-ring on this pin as well. So that's in the kit. When that O-ring is old and crusty, that pin basically just falls out. So the transmission is mostly back together now. Reverse frictions, the front band, etc. is all in. And then I just bolted the pump on. Of course it's all done up to spec. And then I went ahead and installed the valve body, and that does have the new gasket. Everything's moving nice and smoothly. And that's a new genuine MB cable. And of course that's working perfectly as well. I have changed the seal on that pin that's staked in. I'm going to have to find some JB weld to hold that pin in there, because my stake method did not work. The pin can still move, so yeah, I'll get some metal JB weld. Obviously the filter is installed with a new gasket and seal on the drain plug. One last surprise, I tried to install the dipstick tube and the bolt hole is completely stripped out, so I'm going to have to buy a frickin' tap anyway and increase the size of that hole and put another bolt in there.